Hey, I just wanted to share something that I've been noticing in God's Word as I've been reading it lately, and I just find this really encouraging and kind of a neat thing that God does. I'm reading in Isaiah, and I'm in the latter chapters. And if you read Isaiah 40 through 48, what you're going to find is that there's sort of this recurring theme that happens in the book of Isaiah. God starts comparing himself to idols in Isaiah 40 and kind of talking about the silliness of making an idol out of wood or stone. And, especially if you're making it out of wood, you use some of it to make your fire, and then some of it you bow down to as your God. And he does that. He kind of carries that theme through those chapters, and a couple of other times throughout those chapters, he'll make that same comparison. But he also has this other comparison that I really find interesting, and it sort of comes up over and over and over again. In Isaiah 41, verses 21 through 23, God asks the idols to present their case, that they are true gods. He says this in verse 22, announce to us what is coming, declare the things that are going to come afterward, that we may know that you are gods. Indeed, do good or evil, that we may anxiously look about us in fear together. So he says, prove that you're a God. Just tell us what the future holds. And God says, because I will. In fact, it's what I did. Isaiah 42, verses 8 and 9, he says, the former things have come to pass. Now I declare new things. Before they spring forth, I proclaim them to you. So God says, I'm going to predict the future. And I can, because I know it, because I'm the one true God. I am a true God. Isaiah 44, 6 and 7. He says something similar. Who is like me? Let him proclaim and declare it. Yes, let him recount it to me in order from the time that I established the ancient nation, and let them declare to them the things that are coming and the events that are going to take place. So again, he says, let these other gods who think that they compare to me, let us see that they know the future. One of the most significant prophecies or statements about this that God makes is in Isaiah 44. At the very end of the chapter, God's talking about himself again, and he calls himself the maker of all things, and he's the one who's orchestrating the events of life. And he says this, he confirms the word of his servant and performs the purpose of his messengers. It is I, God says, who says of Jerusalem, she shall be inhabited, and of the cities of Judah, they shall be rebuilt, and I will raise up her ruins again. It is I who says to the depths of the sea, be dried up, and I will make your rivers dry. It is I who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and he will perform all my desires. He will rebuild Jerusalem. I want you to understand something about what God's doing here. And Isaiah lived about 200 years before the fall of Jerusalem, not the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the fall of Jerusalem. So 200 years after Isaiah, about the fall of Jerusalem happens. Then 70 years after that, that's when the Medes and the Persians take over. Cyrus was one of the kings of the Medes and the Persians. He defeated Babylon. And that's about the time that he said, rebuild Jerusalem. Here's God 270 years at least-ish saying to his people, I've already got the king picked out that I'm going to establish to rebuild Jerusalem. And so he says in Isaiah 46, I am God. There is no other. I am God. There is no one like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, things which have not been done. My purpose will be established, and I will accomplish all my good pleasure. He says something similar in Isaiah 48 as he asks again for them to prove that their gods are really gods. He says, I declared the former things long ago in Isaiah 48:3. And they went forth from my mouth, and I proclaimed them. Suddenly I acted, and they came to pass. Because I know you are obstinate, and your neck is like an iron sinew, and your forehead bronze. Therefore I declared them to you long ago. Before they took place, I proclaimed them to you, so that you would not say, my idol has done them, and my graven image and my molten image have commanded them. Here's God saying, look, I predicted these things a long time ago so that you would know it had to be me and not your idols. And so what does that tell us? Well, for one thing, it tells us that God is sovereign, and he's working his plan, and he knows what's going to happen. So nothing takes him by surprise. You don't have to worry about tomorrow. You don't have to worry about whatever it is that's going on in your life. Whatever circumstances are weighing you down, don't worry. God knows, and he's orchestrating it all accomplishing his purpose, and he knows. He knows what's going to happen. I mean, he knew the name of the king almost 300 years before it ever happened. He declared it. And that means we can trust all of his promises, right? I mean, if he makes any sort of a promise, it's something we can depend on because he's proven that it's true. He's proven that his word is faithful. So when you look through the New Testament and you read things like in Philippians 4:19 that we read yesterday in our day of prayer, that my God will supply all of your needs according to his riches and glory. You can count on it. God knows, and he can do it. He's God. He's sovereign. When you think about him restoring Israel, like he promises to do in Romans chapter 11, you know it's going to happen. When you think about, can God really help me overcome this sin? Well, when he promises to complete the work that he's done in you, he can. He's God, and he's sovereign, and he's not like an idol. And so don't let the future make you afraid. Don't let yourself make you afraid. Trust God. Depend on him because he is the one true God, declaring the end from the beginning and knowing it all and working his purpose. You can trust him. I hope that's an encouragement to you as you go through your day, the rest of your day today, and the rest of your week. I hope that you can see these things and you can trust God because he is the one true God. You don't have to look to idols. You don't have to make something up. Just look to God.